Hello, hello, hello then everybody, welcome back. Today I've got a few wee jobs to do, so I've got bits and pieces of sewing to do, so I thought I'd take the chance and chat to you about something while I'm doing it, because I've come to a decision. I have been gardening all wrong all of this time. So let's chat about why. At the minute we're in the throes of just the suckiest autumn weather, where it is freezing cold and pelting down rain most of the time. In fact, it has been for about a fortnight. So I'll get what I can done out here, and I may drag you back indoors to chat about some stuff because it's pretty cold. May as well take advantage of the warm house when we can. But anyways, I said I've been gardening wrong all this time, or I've realised I have. And here's what I mean. Now, I've already, I was going to say hinted at, but it's more than hinted at. I've downright told you guys about this over the last 2 or 3 months worth of videos, where I've spoken, particularly on some of the things we're doing now, like, remember the spring onions? Well, I spoke about my idea was to get some of these going so they're looking really good and they're up and they're healthy and they're really coming on, and then I'd sow more. And the idea being, instead of just having one big batch of spring onions that are all ready at roughly the same time, I'll always have spring onions to harvest and always have more coming on. I'm going to try. I may not be successful. I may need you guys to be cheerleaders here and bolster me on this, but I'm going to try and do this for just about everything I am planting and sowing and growing, because I've nowhere to lean because the greenhouse is full of plants because of this. So basically it is like this. I have learned that over the past 9 years or so, I'm a bit of an excited puppy. I'm not going to deny it. So I sow and grow loads and loads of stuff, and it's awesome. I get heaps and heaps of a harvest. But I have learned though, over the years, and you guys know this because you've been on the journey with me, that quite often I get far too much of a crop, to the point where I'm begging neighbours to take it because I've got too much, and I just get sick of it. So we got to a point this year with the green beans where I had so many plants that were cropping beans at the same time that I just got so sick of eating beans. I couldn't bear another meal that had green beans in it. And my neighbours were the same, and they just wouldn't take any more off me anymore. Now, that was because I had too many plants that were at the same maturity at that same time. So I got what's called a glut. And it's the same for everything. I get the same thing with beetroots every year, where we've still got 12 beetroots in the bed because we just got sick of eating them. But they end up getting huge and fibrous, and then the only thing you can do with them really is make soups and things. And strawberries, remember strawberries and how sick I got strawberries? And that's why Kate and I are sick of strawberries, because we're picking this amount every single day and have been for about 2 weeks now. So I'm going to try and not have gluts anymore. Instead, I'm going to try sowing little and often, so that I've always got a harvest going, but I'm never inundated. Because, you know, this whole food abundance thing everyone's talking about online is great, but, you know, you have to manage it well. So that is the plan. Now, it is something called succession planting, okay? And I'm going to do this and chat to you about it, because succession planting is one of the jargon terms you're going to see all around the internet just now, and it is so easy to get muddled up because there are so many of these terms and it kind of looks like they're all the same thing. So, you know, we're going to get confused. So in good old Eli fashion, I'm going to try and simplify this right down. So let me get planting. So succession planting then, little and often. So the idea is, the best way I can describe this is what I'm doing just now. So I've already got the spring onions going. I'm about to sow more, so that at different stages of maturity, so I'll have harvests often, just little harvests as I need them often, rather than a huge big glut to the point where I can't do anything with it and it gets wasted. That's the idea. Now with succession planting, you're doing this, but you're pretty much doing it with the same crops. So as I'm doing here, I'm growing my next lot of spring onions. So it will still be spring onions. And the idea of doing this is I can extend the harvesting of all these different things for as long as possible. The broccoli rab. So I've got this lot that I sowed, I think about, say, 5 weeks ago now. You'll notice they're really slowing down now and how quickly they grow. Does that make sense? They're growing a lot slower now because it's getting much cooler and there's less light. But then we've got these beasts, which are the original ones that I sowed. I can barely hold this up. So I expect to be harvesting these in the next maybe week or two. Funnily enough, the ones outside are further on than these. How weird is that? But the same with the lettuces. I've got the lettuces in the bed that we're harvesting, there's hardly any left. And I've got the next lot, and then in a few weeks I'll sow more again. Succession planting then. Sowing little and often so that you get little harvests often and you extend the amount of harvest and time you get for that particular crop. Okay, that's the idea of that. Now, this is a good thing for me because I've not got a lot of growing space here. I've just got the 3 beds outside and the greenhouse. So that means I'm going to change habits of a lifetime, because normally I pretty much fill a bed. I get a whole bed's worth of beetroots and carrots. Instead, I'm only going to need maybe a 1/4 bed at a time for each crop, because as I'm harvesting, I'm re-sowing. So I'm reusing that same space all the time, which means I may actually be able to grow more in terms of more varieties of things in the same space. That's the hope. So I'm getting some more of the Valen winter gem lettuce in. But some of the other terms you might hear then. There's 2 main terms you'll hear: intercropping or interplanting, and relay planting. It's this same idea of making the most of the space you've got. It's just slightly different in how you do it, and it is slightly different. So with intercropping, instead of sowing little and often of the same seeds to try and extend the harvests, you're actually growing multiple varieties of plant in the same space. And how you do that is to plant things together that don't compete. So you guys already know this. I bet you've already heard of this. Imagine, in fact, 3 sisters planting, where you have corn and squash and beans growing at the same time in the same space. The idea is they don't compete with each other. They mature at different times. And you have the sweet corn, which is very, very tall. So you can have the squash underneath it, which is very, very low. So the squash grows across the ground. You also have the beans, and the idea is the sweet corn provides basically support for the beans to grow up of, and you're harvesting your beans as your sweet corn is growing and maturing and ripening. And when the sweet corn has passed, you've then got your squash growing, and it will start producing the crop. Or even, have you ever grown things like basil underneath your tomato plants? Now, you may have done it as companion planting, but you're essentially intercropping, because you're putting something in the same soil underneath the tomato plants and using up that space to grow more than one thing. There's obviously lots of ways you can do it, but that's the basis of it. Now, the other one, relay planting. So the idea is that you're using that same space to grow as many crops as possible. So you'll put in, say, the second crop while the first crop is still grown, but almost ready to harvest, so that you'll pull that first crop and harvest it, the second crop is in there almost ready to go, and you'll repeat. So it's a relay, you're constantly harvesting, okay? So like I said, they're all very, very similar. They're just done in different ways. Now that's the thing. Because that means for me, I'm going to have to do an awful lot of planning and thinking. So as I said, I've got my 3 beds that I'm thinking about this for. I've already, over the last couple of years, started to think about the space in terms of I've used the vertical planter for my strawberries, and that freed up a bed so that I could grow something else in it, but I still got the strawberries. I've got the blackberries along the fence. So again, that's out of the way, it's not using up any of my bed space, and I've still got them growing. But to do my succession sowing in the beds, I'm going to have to decide, because I'm going to have to think about what do I sow and when. Am I sowing things in the greenhouse to bring them out as plants? And at what point do things have to be sown and grown? Because that's the big thing. I need to have a plan so I know when to sow things so that it all ticks over at the right timings, because there's no point in me sowing something and then it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks behind and then I have to wait, and that's a waste. You know, that's not the idea here. So I've got to get all this planning going. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys along on all of this journey, okay? So as I'm doing that thinking and planning, I'll share it with you guys because it might be useful for you and how you're doing things in your garden too. The most important thing though is just don't worry about jargon. It doesn't matter if you call something the right name or not, okay? And anyone that feels they have to pull you up because you've used the wrong word anywhere is just being a numpty, okay? And ignore them. What's important is you work out the best way for you to do things in your garden. So whether it's succession sowing or intercropping or relay planting or just having no plan at all and just sticking it into the ground and see what happens, it doesn't matter. As long as you're growing and you're having fun and enjoying your garden, that's what matters. So just for all those people that keep getting my name wrong, I'm Eli, and this is my garden where I sow, grow and have fun, and most importantly, bring you guys along for the ride. See you guys.